With the massive success that was the Nintendo Switch, selling 152 million units, you would imagine that the Nintendo Switch 2 would be a shoo-in for a successful console life cycle. However, Nintendo is no stranger to consoles just straight up failing. Looking up at the GameCube only sold 21.74 million units. The Wii U had an abysmal life cycle, only selling 13.56 million units. And even the 3DS, which is widely regarded as a successful console, had a rocky start due to high prices, capping this console out at 75.94 million units sold. So Nintendo is no stranger to things not going their way and having to adjust course. And this could definitely be the case with the Nintendo Switch 2, especially with the rocky start it's had as far as messaging and pricing is concerned leading up to the launch of the system. So today I want to talk about if the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to rise to the top and be as great as its predecessor was, or if this console is going to flop. Now, do I personally think that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to flop? No. But I like to play little devil's advocate here and talk about the reasons that I do think it could flop as a system, because there are some things that people are very vocal about online regarding the Switch 2. First and foremost, let's talk about the fact that this console is worth a lot of money. Right now, the Switch 2 is going for, with just the base unit, $450, and with the Mario Kart bundle, it is going to be $500. That is a decent chunk of change, no matter who you are. That is a lot of money, and this has been a topic of debate because of the price. And due to this being a high price, a lot of people have been on the fence about if they're going to pick it up day one, because it is a lot of money. It's just the fact of the matter. Now, I would argue that of all the reasons that the Switch 2 would fail, this is probably the lowest on the totem pole, because from what I've seen online, most people, while yes, they agree the price is high, they understand why the price is high. For what we're getting from this system, people seem to agree that the price is about where it should be. But that doesn't deter people from just waiting to pick this up later down the line. They might think the price is reasonable, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to pick it up day one. And I've already seen people in the comment section on my videos saying that they're planning on waiting a little bit and then picking it up later down the road, maybe as a pre-owned console, what have you. So there's definitely some debate there on it, whether or not it's worth picking up day one, despite the price maybe being in the range that people expected it to be. And for me personally, this is right where I expected the console to be. When I was going into the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, when they announced the price and everything, I was expecting this to be right in the $400 to $450 range. So I was right on the money with my prediction as where this console would land. So I'm not shocked by this, but it is, like I said, a lot of money. But I think the big thing as far as pricing goes is based on the games themselves. This has been a hot topic of debate since the announcement of a lot of these Switch 2 titles, specifically looking at things like the Kirby Switch 2 version, looking at Mario Kart World, and the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 versions. The Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Kart World, and the Kirby Switch 2 version is going to be $80 on this system. This is a new record as far as new video game sales go, and this has been a hot topic of debate, is if these games are actually going to be worth $80. And a lot of people are saying no, they're not going to be worth $80, but I would argue this is a subjective take. This is a matter of what is your money worth to you as an individual. If you don't think Mario Kart is worth $80, then don't buy Mario Kart at $80. But I think a lot of people are going to opt to just not buy Mario Kart at $80. A lot of people are going to decide that that price is just too steep for them. My brother being one of those. We constantly talk about this, that there is just too much money that you have to put into these games to get your money back, in their opinion. And while I don't necessarily feel the same way, a lot of people share that sentiment, and I totally understand that, because it is a lot of money at the end of the day. And whether it be on Mario Kart specifically, or looking to get a Switch 2 version of the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom or Kirby, it's just $80 is a big asking point, especially for people that maybe just want to go pick up a game on an impulse buy. You're much less likely to do that and pick up a game at $80 versus, you know, $60, $50, $40. You're just less likely to make that impulse purchase the closer you get to triple digits. So I totally understand that sentiment. Do I think this is crazy with the prices? No, I've kind of expected the prices to go up for a while. I am totally on the page that since games swapped from $60 to $70, that this was coming. sometime soon. We knew this was going to happen when the console generation jumped from PlayStation 4 and Xbox One to the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5. When they started coming out at $70, it was only a matter of time until games started getting up to $80, but it doesn't make it sting any less for consumers. So I totally understand that this is not something we want, even though many people are willing to actually pay it. But another big issue as far as games are concerned with the Nintendo Switch 2 are the game key cards that are coming out. And a lot of people have issues with this because the game key cards are digital cards where the game is not fully on the cartridge. The cartridge is inserted into the Nintendo Switch 2 system, and it then prompts a download once you are connected to the internet, and then you can download the game and play it and use it like any other physical game. The issue people are having with this is the game is not on the card, so they are concerned that eventually we won't be able to re-download these. Luckily, they have confirmed that these key cards are not tied to your Nintendo Switch account or profile. You can resell these key cards, you can give them to a friend, and it will always work. It is very similar to what's happened the last two generations on PlayStation and Xbox. If you buy a fair chunk of Xbox or PlayStation games physically, and you insert that disc into the system, there is pretty much always a download that is prompted for you to get the rest of the game data downloaded to your system. So this is not a new practice. It's not even new for Switch itself. There were many games on the original Nintendo Switch system that had this same function, looking at things like Hogwarts Legacy, looking at things like the Outer Worlds on Nintendo Switch. A lot of games had this where you had to just download the game and it was not natively on the cartridge, but this has become a hot topic of debate, especially because a lot of companies like CD Projekt Red or the Rune Factory developers, they are putting these games on the cartridge. So a lot of people are going and supporting the games that are fully on the cartridge, which I am totally on board with. You should be supporting those developers. The game is fully on the cartridge, but a lot of these third-party developers are making these all game key cards to save money on their end, and a lot of people, this is rubbing them the wrong way, and I understand the sentiment entirely. I am on the same page. If I have the option to either get a game key card or buy the game digitally, I'm likely just gonna buy the game digitally because it's just more convenient. And at the end of the day, I don't really like the game key cards, so I don't really want to support them. So for me personally, I'm on the same page. But like I said at the top of the video, I don't think this system is going to fail. I think this system is going to sell like gangbusters. It is going to be everywhere. Everybody is going to want to get their hands on this system. It is going to be a huge success, and we're going to talk about why. I like to give the reasons why not, because it is important to talk about both sides of the argument. I don't want it to be like a void where we just all shout the same things at each other over and over. I want to look at both sides of the debate so everybody can understand both sides of the argument. Now, I will say, like I said, there is a lot of money invested in the system. I have made a separate video talking about how you can save money on the Nintendo Switch 2. There's a lot of cheat codes that you can use to save some money, so check that video out after this one, and it'll be linked in the description below because you could definitely save some money. But like I said, this system is going to sell gangbusters. This is going to be a massive success. The first reason this is going to be a massive success is because this is exactly what we asked for. We have been saying for years, I mean, I can think back as far as 2020, 2021, people have been asking and speculating about a more powerful Switch unit, whether we thought it was going to be the Nintendo Switch 2 or we thought it was going to be a Switch Pro with just updated performance. We have been asking for this forever. We got a system that can run 4K, run games at 120 FPS, has fantastic looking graphics on the first party games, and is powerful enough to run a lot of these third party titles, looking at things like Cyberpunk, that previously weren't available. And with that comes the increased price. That is where you're getting the increased price. Looking at the $450 price tag, this is $100 more than the OLED version that is currently available for the original Nintendo Switch, and I think this checks out with all the new internals and everything that this new system can do. The price lines up accordingly. So despite the fact that it is more expensive, with everything that we asked for, this is exactly what we should have expected along the way, and I think most people are on the same page that yes, this is what we wanted, this is what we are going to pay. But even Nintendo thinks this is going to be a successful console launch, specifically because of the fact that they put out their consolidated financial forecast. We talked about this in a previous video, that Nintendo is actually expecting to sell 15 million units in the first year of the system's life cycle, and that is very high, and they might even be underselling this. They've already said that this might be a safe number. A lot of analysts and everybody have been saying this might be a safe number, but they're expecting to sell 15 million consoles and 45 million games for the system, and I think that is crazy numbers, especially looking at a lot of the other projected numbers for consoles at their launch, this beats a lot of those console numbers, just blows them out of the water. So Nintendo is expecting this to be a very successful system at launch, especially in that first year. And we haven't even gotten a new Nintendo Direct showing what is coming next year or later this year for the system, especially considering the fact that this console launches right on the edge of Summer Game Fest starting. There's going to be a ton of game announcements for the Switch 2 at this event, and that is going to lead to more unit sales as stock becomes available. Pair this with this article from the Video Gamer that states Nintendo underestimated massive Switch 2 demand due to console's high price. Nintendo's aware that this console is expensive and not everybody is going to be able to afford it, and they were expecting maybe a little less sales due to that, but it seems that that's not the case. And it even says at the top of the article that Nintendo Switch 2 is expected to be the biggest console launch of all time, with Nintendo now expecting the new handheld console to outsell the original's first year within its first 3 months release window. That's absolutely massive. In the company's latest earning calls via VGC, Furukawa explained that the console's high price of $450 posed to a challenge to the early adoption. However, the company has since found that the hype for the upcoming handheld had outpaced the expectations. Quote, Nintendo Switch 2 is priced relatively high compared to the Nintendo Switch, so we recognize that there are corresponding challenges to early adoption, Furukawa explained. That being said, Nintendo Switch 2 can play compatible Nintendo Switch software, so there is a continuity between the platforms. Furukawa, I keep saying that wrong, added that the addition of the console's Mario Kart World bundle was the initial plan to offset the challenge of the console's high price. The president explained that the bundle was devised to accelerate adoption in the first fiscal year, aiming to get off to the same start we did with the Nintendo Switch. While the constantly fluctuating US tariff situation has caused unexpected issues for the company, Nintendo explained that the financial issue or a possibility of recession did not affect their sales forecast for the console. In response to the demand, the company is rapidly increasing production capabilities. Furukawa explained that the biggest challenge to keeping the console sales prediction is to make sure that the sales continue after the launch weeks of the Nintendo Switch 2. While new first-party games are being released across the year, such as Donkey Kong Bonanza, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and Pokemon Legends CA, the president admits it will not be easy to keep the momentum going over the long term through the holiday season and beyond. As it stands, the Nintendo Switch 2 is expected to be the biggest console launch of all time, eclipsing PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 launch period records. With the console launching outside of the worldwide pandemic and the global chip shortage, Nintendo is set up for a major success. So Nintendo is even stating here that they, despite the price being a little higher than they are used to putting consoles out at, the adoption rate is looking fantastic based on pre-orders and the demand for the system. And while they said it is going to be difficult to keep that momentum going, if they come out and they have a bunch of third-party support, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this video, and they continue to put out banger first-party titles, this is going to be a massive success. I mean, we don't even know what's on the horizon because it is the start of this console generation. There is so many games that could come out. We could see new Fire Emblem games. We could see a new Animal Crossing. There's just so much that could happen with the launch of this game, especially looking at something like Animal Crossing that was such a massive success on the original Nintendo Switch, especially in a time that was very difficult for many people. Looking at the pandemic time, this game sold so many Switch units. This was a system seller. And I don't think that just because an Animal Crossing comes out on a new system in a different time period where there's not a pandemic or something going on, that people forget that. People that played Animal Crossing during that time are going to associate a new Animal Crossing with that same time period and the way that game made them feel. And with the success of that game and how big that game was, many people are going to adopt a new Animal Crossing and pick up a Switch to reconnect with that feeling that they had at that time. They want to feel good like they did at that time, and Animal Crossing is forever going to be associated with that. And I think that is going to help move this system even after launch when they start announcing these games that people have such fond memories of from the previous system that was such a success. And that's not to mention the games that are already announced. First off, we have Mario Kart World. Like I said, Mario Kart World is a big open world Mario Kart, something we haven't seen before with Mario Kart. It's really taking a step forward for the game, and I'm very keen to see what secrets are there because more game footage is coming out for this, showing that there is additional stuff that we were unaware of after we saw the Mario Kart Direct. So there's a lot left in this game that we just don't know about that is slowly trickling out with leaks and things of that nature. So very excited to see what Mario Kart has. We have all those old games that are getting switched to enhanced versions like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild that I personally am incredibly excited to go back to and play with the updated graphics and better performance. It's going to be an absolute treat. But then other games that are coming out down the line, looking at Donkey Kong Bonanza, which looks fantastic. It gives me serious Mario Odyssey vibes, and it's something I'm really looking forward to, and definitely looks like a game that couldn't run on the original Switch system just because of all the particle effects with the entire environment being destructible. There's so much happening on screen that they definitely needed a more powerful system for that game. Looking at Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, they originally announced it for the first Nintendo Switch, and it took the entire life cycle of the Nintendo Switch in order to get that game out. And while it is still coming to the base Nintendo Switch, it is a better looking game and a better performing game on the Nintendo Switch 2, and I am incredibly excited to play that game. So as far as first party titles go, there's so much offering there. Also got Legends EA coming out later this year, and again, we have third-party developers that are putting games on the system that were never there before. Looking at things like Cyberpunk 2077 coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 on launch, that is running incredibly well, looking at 30 to 40 frames based on the demo that was on the hands-on experience that people got to play. That was an older version of Cyberpunk. That is not the version that is going to be out at launch. That was a demo version. We are going to see probably improvements from what people got their hands on initially that said was really good. We have things like Elden Ring coming out. We have Duskbloods, which is that new FromSoft game that is exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2 next year that's coming out. That's incredibly exciting. Seeing a FromSoft game exclusive to the Nintendo Switch is massive. But then other games as well, looking at things like Borderlands 4 coming later this year, day and date on the Nintendo Switch 2. I would have never anticipated this game coming day and date with the other consoles, especially considering how the Borderlands 3 port looked and ran on the Nintendo Switch. It just wasn't up to par with the other systems. This game looks fantastic on the Nintendo Switch 2. So as far as games go, there is massive support for this system that I think is going to move units. This is a new way to play games for a lot of people, especially people that are traveling and moving around a lot. Like, they're going to be able to play these big and powerful games on the go, and it's going to be big for a lot of people. That's why I personally buy all my stuff for the Nintendo Switch, because I like to have that option to play my game wherever I am at, and I love it. I am such a huge fan of it. Not just for first party stuff, which I love from Nintendo, but the third party stuff. I have, since the Nintendo Switch has come out, I try to buy every third party game that comes out on the Switch because it is just a fantastic way to play those games. So for all of these reasons, I think the Nintendo Switch 2, despite there being issues with a lot of the stuff that we talked about earlier in this video, the pricing, the new games being $80, and the game key cards, I feel like a lot of the people that are online talking about this, and this isn't a diss, I just think it is the vocal minority, because the sales numbers and the pre-order numbers have blown expectations out of the water, and Nintendo is showing financial reports that they are expecting this system to sell like crazy. And with the support of all these games and all these third-party developers coming out, I think this system is set up for success, especially with Summer Game Fest right around the corner, showing off even more games that could be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think that this system is going to rise to the top, or do you think it's going to flop? Let me know your thoughts. But that is going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the speculation and the conversation surrounding this. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, because it helps me out, helps this video out, and helps the channel out immensely. And you want to stick around because I've got plenty of Switch 2 content coming up the closer and closer we get to launch. So if that's your jam, make sure you are here and ready for that. But until next time, peace.